The last eclipse of 2025 is a Virgo solar eclipse on September 21st at 3:54 p.m. That's Eastern time, so be sure and adjust for your location. This eclipse is happening at 29 degrees of Virgo in your chart. So you want to identify where you have 29 degrees of Virgo by house, as this is where the eclipse is resetting and beginning a new point in your life based on what you have completed, learned, and integrated. It's very interesting when we have a solar eclipse, which is a new moon, at the very last degree of an astrology sign, which is mastery, graduation, and preparing for a transition into the next sign. This is heightened because 29 degrees of Virgo is the last degree of self-development, personal identity, and self-awareness. That's because in the astrology wheel, which begins at 0 degrees of Aries, we'll get to this in a minute, this Neptune, 0 degrees of Aries, all the way to 29 degrees of Virgo, is the first 6 signs of the zodiac where you're learning about who you are, what you need, what you value, what you feel, what you enjoy, how you live your life, how you communicate. So it's the development of self before the energy switches to the second half of the astrology wheel, which starts at 0 degrees of Libra, and is where you then take your energy out into the world to interact with others, work with others, partner, share, exchange, determine if you have the same values, the same purpose, the same direction. And the second half ends at 29 degrees of Pisces. And you can see we have Saturn at 28 degrees of Pisces. So right away, this is a solar eclipse that is a reset, preparing us for significant transitions, moving us into a new season of self, a new season on the planet, and also showing us what we need to finalize and complete in order to close out karma, soul contracts, spiritual lessons, and to take responsibility for what you've been learning and your role in it. Now, Saturn here at 28 degrees of Pisces retrograde is a review of what has transpired in your life since May 2025, which was when Saturn was last here at 28 degrees of Pisces, opposing the sun and the moon. That opposition from Saturn can feel like a challenge, a difficulty, something outside of you that is a block, a limitation, a slowdown. The opposition, especially when you have the sun and the moon together, an opposition from Saturn can feel heavier. It could feel more personal. But what you're meant to understand is that this Saturn is reflecting back to you areas of growth that we each need to take responsibility for. It's your role. It's what you're aware of. It's what you have to close out for yourself and see it through the eyes of personal responsibility, which is Virgo. What are you responsible for on your spiritual path? Well, the answer could be everything. Everything that relates to your personal sovereignty, your free will, your perspective, your viewpoints. So there is a pause here that was actually exact when the sun was at 28 degrees and the moon was at 28 degrees of Virgo. So when they were at 28 degrees of Virgo, right before the eclipse, they both had that exact opposition to Saturn. That's a standstill. And this Saturn is holding up something that you're meant to see. You're meant to acknowledge it and to remain in a place of responsibility with what it is for you. In Pisces, this can show up through two different pathways. This can show up as the crisis point that the human energy feels. Or it can show up as the spiritual point of transitions, endings, and a void that's right on time that your soul is aware of. People are going to be making big choices here about what they do next on their path, on their personal growth. I'm feeling like there's going to be people who are closing out karma because they understand their role or what they're learning. It's like, I'm willing to embrace my own healing here. I'm willing to stand in my spiritual mastery and own this, work with this, see this through for my own best and highest good. And then there's also going to be those who will procrastinate, delay, push it off, escape the escapism of Pisces and say, that's not mine. That has nothing to do with me. I'm not going to deal with that. And then they're going to actually keep carrying this load of Saturn and Pisces, and they could even be bringing it into the next cycle. So this is important to ask yourself, how am I resetting? How am I resetting my personal energy from a place of spiritual mastery, responsibility, and commitment, and I can handle it. I can work through it. There's work here because this Virgo energy is dedicated, responsible, focused on results. And Saturn is about the work and energy we have to put in to get the results we want. This could be an awareness of what you've been holding and embodying physically. Virgo is the body and the mind. It could be checking in on your mental health and realizing there's a problem here. There's a problem with what I'm feeling, what I'm holding, the energy I'm experiencing. There's a problem that I'm feeling in my mind and my body. I need help. I'm at a standstill. What do I do? You could be seeking new solutions and answers with the Virgo solar eclipse. This can not only relate to mental health, but physical health of what your body has been holding and carrying. If there's been a lot of stress, worry, guilt, which is very easy to be holding considering how big this year has been, maybe there is some kind of reality check here around what you need to reset in terms of your health and your lifestyle. And at the end of Virgo, it's what you need to cut out, what you need to close out and move away from. It's not good for me anymore. I don't like how I feel the next morning. My body can't handle certain ingredients, certain food. I feel too that the Virgo energy at 29 degrees is not only how you digest food, but it's how you've been digesting and processing the energies of the collective and realizing it's taken its toll. And as I say that, I'm getting the visual of acupuncture needles. And whether or not you've ever done acupuncture before, the needles are put in to move the energy, to alleviate a pathway, because the body is composed of so many energy meridians. I feel like this is an acupuncture point that is a pain point of energetic buildup that's meant to be released so that it can flow There can be new movement of what has been stagnant or building up over time. By the time the Virgo solar eclipse happens, though, you might already be aware of that, because here we have this Mars at 29 degrees of Libra moving away from the opposition to Chiron at 26 Aries retrograde. So there already was something brought to your awareness that was a trigger point that needs healing, that needs love and support. And the Virgo solar eclipse could bring you the how to take care of something, how to manage it, and then how to transition into a new experience. And that's part of what the Virgo solar eclipse is about. Because it's happening again at that 29 degrees of Virgo, 24 hours later, the sun moves into Libra and it starts a new season. That's the Libra Equinox. It starts a season. So we're in a big season of change here. And the universe is saying, what do you need to responsibly take care of and close out that is part of your karmic debt? Or perhaps if you don't feel it as karmic debt, it's something that maybe you haven't had energy for, because this Saturn opposition is a loss of motivation and focus, and yet it still has to be taken care of. And there's a pressure of, I've got to get this done. I've got to figure this out. I've got to know how to move forward from this point. And that's part of the big reset. I was going to say pain point. It doesn't have to be a pain point, but it's a pressure point. Because there's a part of your consciousness that's saying, I don't want to continue like this. I don't want the same results. I don't want the same patterns. And Virgo is about the patterns, habits, and routines that compose our life. On a daily basis, it's no big deal. You do what you do, you go about your world, you get up early to walk the dog, you make your lunch, you go to work, come home and feed the cat. You do what you do on a daily basis, but there's a bigger message here. And it's looking at, there's certain things that you're outgrowing. And you've already been aware of it because Saturn is already telling you, this actually isn't working anymore. It's time to make some adjustments here so you can close out this energy that's been in your subconscious. And Virgo makes it conscious. And that could be part of this reality or this reset of Virgo solar eclipse is, this doesn't work for me anymore. I don't want to keep doing this. I'm ready for the change. I'm ready. And that willingness is key, because in order for you to receive new information and guidance, your energy has to be open to take it in. And so there could be a sense of, I'm ready for a new start in my life because of what I've been through, what I've mastered. But I know that times are changing. I'm evolving. The world is evolving. How can I do this differently? And it's your willingness that can be part of this new moon solar eclipse, where you're saying, I have room now to take in a new solution, a new process, or a new approach. Now, Virgo actually has two ruling energies. Mercury is most commonly associated with Virgo. Chiron has been noted by astrologers for many years now of also being a good fit for ruling Virgo. And that's because this Mercury also rules Gemini. So with a Virgo solar eclipse, we are looking at both the Mercury energy, Mercury here in Libra, which wants fair developments, good communications, seeks resolution, wants to talk things through, is very objective, detached. There's a willingness to see things outside of yourself, the other side of the coin, another person's perspective of the same experience. And then we have this this Chiron at 26 degrees of Aries retrograde that just had the opposition to Mars in Libra. And there's something that we're individually, personally working through to heal self-confidence, self-esteem, who you are now, and what you're understanding about your own needs. This Chiron is the work that we do privately, and Mercury is what we talk about or how we present to others. We have some very big oppositions in this chart, because not only is it the opposition between Virgo and Pisces, but we have strong opposition between Libra and Aries. This opposition, right, between Mars and Chiron, and then this Mercury that was in a more direct opposition to Neptune right before the solar eclipse. And then you can see Venus is in Virgo over here too. So we have all the personal planets in Virgo and Libra, outer planets, Pisces and Aries. Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries, this is the world point. Important beginnings that will truly manifest and begin with the Saturn-Neptune opposition coming up in February 2026, right here at 0 degrees, 48 minutes of Aries. But this is the cleanup work that needs to be taken care of, what has to be finalized and ended. And perhaps the struggles of that, the discomfort in that. Again, how your body is feeling and holding it, what you're thinking about, what you're saying, how you're presenting it to others. The higher perspective here of these planets in Virgo and Libra is what you've been learning about yourself through the Virgo and Libra energies in your life. Perhaps a willingness to see your lifestyle and everyday world in a new way. Looking at what to change. And then the people that you interact with, you talk with, you share space with. Those are the Libra energies. This Mercury is not only moving away from that opposition to Neptune, but is also in a air grand trine with Uranus at 1 degrees of Gemini, Pluto at 1 degrees of Aquarius. There's something important about right before this eclipse, because these planets have their direct aspects right before the eclipse. So there's going to be developments and things happening that lead you to this powerful reset. I'm going to say a good 5 days before the eclipse. So let's just say September 15th, September 16th. There's going to be some important things coming through that ultimately leads you to the realization of what you need to reset and change. And then the moon enters Libra hours after the eclipse. The sun enters Libra a day later, and there's new balancing. There's balance that happens when these planets move into Libra. But then they're going to be opposing Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries, which is the false self, who you're really becoming that others don't fully see. And I see this too as understanding how you're trusting your intuition, your new emerging self. There can be an openness to who you're becoming. Are you hiding that from others, Libra? Are you holding back who you really are in order to maintain a relationship, to keep a connection? Are you trying to appear one way to not be rejected or to keep the status quo, to not rock the boat? I think that's going to be a big part of this Virgo solar eclipse. Are you showing up in the truth of who you are? Because that will be rewarded. That is what we're meant to be embracing. And this could be a solar eclipse that shows you who you no longer are, but also who you're no longer meant to align with or connect with, because you're not on the same energy pathway. And that can be a part of this opposition to Saturn. Hard choices, realistic choices, practical choices that need to be made. And then the sun and the moon, as they move into Libra, they each have an air grand trine with Uranus in Gemini, Pluto in Aquarius. I'm going to have a separate video for you talking about that because I think it's really important. But basically the sun and the moon move into Libra, and it opens up new understandings of how to show up as your true self in connections, relationships, and just with everyone in your life, including clients, customers, anyone you deal one-on-one with. There's also going to be an elevation in these relationships, marriages, partnerships, because this air grand trine is radically transforming what we experience in the Libra energies. Important relationships are coming through, are beginning, are restarting. Important relationships are evolving, and it's where you're evolving together, because that is the Libra energy. It's the togetherness, it's us. And I think that's a part of the story here with the solar eclipse happening right around the equinox. There is a new balance. It's like a new balancing mechanism from the universe. Scales of justice. Greater integration of divine masculine and divine feminine energies within us individually that then allows for relationships and partnerships to be stronger. And maybe this is the eclipse that shows you what needs to be fixed within yourself, personally. It's almost like you're fully aware of it because it's not new. At 29 degrees of Virgo, you're aware of it, and that's the pressure point. That acupuncture point of the energy meridian needs to move through. It needs to be reset. If energy has been built up in your connections, what do you need to resolve, discuss, get on the same page about? Because I think that for many of you, this is actually going to help your relationships. Greater honesty, new understandings, new ways of communicating. But what needs to be fixed, processed, understood, and also the element of spiritual responsibility and spiritual maturity. This is also big consequences. Karmic consequences. Those are going to be coming through really strongly. And one more thing, getting back to this Venus and Virgo at 2 degrees. she also just had an exact square to Uranus before this eclipse. And it ruined her planner. It ruined all her work. The formulas on her Excel document got deleted or screwed up. Uranus came through and said, okay, we're doing it differently. Here's our next option. Here's our plan B, which could have been overwhelming for Venus and Virgo, which wants things orderly, clear, simple. And so she had to make changes. So she's probably irritated, irritated or annoyed at whatever this Uranus in Gemini stirred up. Again, another situation where the aspect was exact before the eclipse, right? So whenever she was at 1 degree, 21 minutes of Virgo, a day or so before the eclipse, is when her transit was the strongest. Basically, I'm saying that right before this eclipse, chaos, overwhelm, changes in everything, big triggers, a sense of, what do I do with all this? The Virgo solar eclipse is like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to choose. This is how I fix it, clean it up, organize it, digest it, work with the pressure point, and reset myself. And that's going to then lead you into the next season, literally, as fall begins in the northern hemisphere, spring in the southern hemisphere. But it's allowing you to reset in order to start this new chapter that really gets underway after the Libra Equinox. Resetting your energy, fixing what's broken, dealing with consequences, taking care of the mess. It's quite an interesting eclipse. And every eclipse lasts for a minimum of 6 months. So this energy will last into March 2026. And that's when we'll have our next round of eclipses. So I hope this has been helpful and perhaps validating of what you've been moving through in September. And I will have for you shortly another video discussing the air grand trine when the sun moves into Libra and has, for the first time in our lives, a very dynamic connection with this Pluto and Uranus. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your comments, your likes, subscribes, and I also appreciate that you can share this video with others who can benefit from it as well. So take good care as we move through a very interesting Virgo solar eclipse.